Benjamin Pilat, thank you so much for joining the Ansari podcast, brother. It's a
Thank you for
pleasure to
having me.
have you.
Thank you.
So you actually come from a Jewish Protestant background, and you recently converted to Islam, yet at least half of your family supports the ongoing genocide in Israel and are Zionists, which I find such a fascinating story. I mean, there's more to it than that, but that's why I think it's so beneficial to speak and get your remarks and story about how you even converted to Islam.
Of course.
But before we get into your conversion, can you tell me a little bit about what your relationship with God was growing up and how you saw religion?
Of course, yeah. Again, thank you for having me on, man. So, like you said, Jewish Protestant, Jewish Christian growing up. It's, first of all, I want to state, mostly it's Jewish, by blood. Religiously, most Jews in America don't really practice much Judaism as like a religion fully, reading the Torah, seeing everything in it. So just quick, I guess preface there, but it's not something that's like, I guess, uncommonly known, I suppose. It's just how the Jewish community in America really is. It's a lot more about the culture. It's a lot more about, where they all came from,
like a race
thing
also?
Sort of like just a collective community. So half my family, like you said, is Jewish, and they came from Europe, an immigrant family. I'm first generation myself, not directly from Israel, just from around Czechoslovakia. And when they came here, it was a lot more of religion being really, really suppressed where they came from, under the Iron Curtain, under the USSR. So they really didn't bring a lot of Orthodox Jewish practices with them, but it was always a thing that it was always a thing I grew up with. It was always a thing that I knew who I was, where my family came from. But when it came to relationship with God, it really was more of a confusing aspect than anything, because, I don't know if you know much about Texas, but Texans really, really love their Christianity quite a bit. I lived here for most of my life, and I attended a Christian church with my, Christian parents, and well, both parents, but mostly them, and it was just I suppose conflicting, as the glaring difference between Judaism and Christianity is their disagreement on Jesus and his teachings, a lot of those practices, So it was listening to sermons from pastors of Christian churches, and then doing things like Hanukkah, doing things like Passover, and really not diving too far into either of them, which led me personally to be really, I guess, confused and conflicted. My sister, she absorbed a lot of it and kind of just like, she loved it. She loved that there was two different sides of it. She was like, yeah, this is cool and this is cool. Yay. But for me, it raised a lot of questions in my mind about what the correct way between these two to worship was, even at a point whether, it even to believe in the first place, which was quite, I guess, nerve-wracking for me when I was younger, because like, if these two things can disagree so heavily, then what am I meant to think,
Right. That must feel so weird, because we're all so influenced by the thoughts and ideologies that we were raised with. And I can't imagine growing up with two conflicting ideologies, both being raised with. Mm-hmm. So did that lead you to delve deeper into religion, or kind of stay away from it and put it on the side?
Sort of both at different times. It was kind of one then the other, then back to. At first, it was a lot of questions. This was really something I guess I didn't talk to many people about this. I didn't ask my family about it. It just felt like something they wouldn't help me with. At one point, they really, really tried to push hard religion into me, because it was not in a particularly bad way, not in like a but sort of just like, we're gonna go to church a lot more. We're gonna do extra stuff. We're gonna talk to pastors or rabbi at our local temple, and so that led to a lot more questions. I would like compare and contrast their answers. I remember at one point I had a little notebook at one point where I would ask both of them the same question and then like see how it differed, and it just like really freaked me out, especially since I was like probably 10 to like 14 at this time, and a little younger kid brain can't understand the complexity of a lot of these answers and a lot of really what they were saying. As I got a little bit older, I sort of fell into the second one, divesting. I sort of just pushed it away. I was like, this is confusing. This is too much. I'm feeling disconnected. The more I look into this, the more I'm like, I just don't know. So I completely really just pushed it out of my life.
So you weren't convinced by either?
No, I wasn't convinced by either of them.
Okay.
Just because of how much they differed, I suppose, and how much it was like, it just seemed so corporate in a way, as I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that feeling, that idea of, churches in America and the church, I guess, as a conglomerate being so, there's a billion sects and it's all like these giant concerts, no shade to these things, they're fun, and if that's what you do, all right. But for me, it just felt confusing and weird. Why are we doing this, Yeah. And I almost held some kind of like weird resentment towards my sister, who I said really took it. She really took it to herself. She, read the Bible. She read through a lot of the Torah. She really accepted it, while I just couldn't. And it especially didn't help that being Jewish by blood, both me and her were just not accepted by the people in school, which was very frustrating for us as kids.
You mean a Christian Zionist land is not accepting of Jewish blood children?
Yeah, they didn't like talking to us. They didn't, and by the sole reason of they didn't think we were, I guess, real. Which I suppose in a way they were right. We didn't do a lot of orthodox things, but neither do they. Neither they do a lot of, like, we're 14. What are you talking about? We don't do these things. So for most of my life, we just felt very disconnected from that community.
They didn't think you were real, as in, the classic Jewish stereotypes of not being authentic, or they didn't think you were real, like, oh, you're half Jewish, half Christian.
Yeah, well,
you're
like,
not a true Christian.
Yeah, like half, and more Orthodox, goes by the mother line. And
oh, so this was the Jewish kids that didn't.
Yeah, no, it was them. They didn't want to hang out with us, and they surely did not accept us into the club, so to speak.
Oh, I thought you were talking about like Christian Zionists in Texas.
No. The Jewish communities and areas are generally pretty tight. People know each other. People know, like, hey, there's this family in my neighborhood. There's this family in my neighborhood, and we know them. We know those families in our neighborhood, but we would, we weren't invited to the play dates, I guess, You
weren't considered really Jewish because your mother's bloodline wasn't Jewish.
Yes. So I guess that removes the anonymity. It was my father's side. That is the Jewish side. Yeah.
And this was around what age? Was this high school, college?
This was all the way through school, really. This was all the way from elementary school, whenever, having little friends around was everything, and my parents and other schools' parents would try to, like, hey, let's let our kids play together, and the parents wouldn't like it. And yeah, no, the parents wouldn't like it. And then all the way, even through high school, I suppose I tried again, and we just weren't. The other day, actually, not to throw too much, like, I guess shade. I don't think they will ever see this, but I saw one of these people again a couple weeks ago in just like group setting, and we've always been passing acquaintances, and they would be like, hey, by the way, he's not. Like, I don't know why he says he's who he says he is. Because I was asked, I guess someone asked me why my hair was curly, and I joked and I said Judaism, because I suppose that's the reason. That side of my family's hair is curly. And then she would just whisper about, like, no, he's not really.
So you felt early on the racial supremacism behind the modern day kind of Jewish identity that takes place.
I suppose, but on that front, I want to kind of pull it back a little bit, because I suppose I did go, if that's all you hear, that can be a little much, but I do want to stress that is really a fringe thing. I think there's other factors, I guess, that might involve why kids around that area were just mean, because kids are just going to be mean.
I don't think it's that fringe of a thing. I mean, it's the entire, underlying ideology that breeds Zionism. And that's, propelling and motivating the Jewish state today.
Of course.
Why is it a strictly Jewish state? It's the kids in the neighborhood phenomenon, right?
It is a little things like that. And, that's the massive debate right now, anti-Semitism versus anti-Zionism, of course. And obviously that's a thing we're going to probably be talking about at some point, but just to touch on it now, I think it's extremely important to separate those two. Zionism as a core idea, just basic idea is, hey, we want, a Jewish state to exist. And perhaps in a perfect world, if we could just zap an island somewhere or bam, perfectly new landmass, then maybe that wouldn't be the most terrible thing in the world. But it's with the complexities that would come from an ethno state in general, that wouldn't be great to begin with. But obviously, I don't need to say that the current state of Zionism is, for the past, decades, with Israel and how it is and where it was placed and everything surrounding it, and its 20-hour podcast we could make about it is, indefensible to hopefully every, Jewish person in America that we should be associating.
And they could have just asked Dubai. Dubai could have given them an island real
we
quick.
could have just asked them. They make islands all the time.
Yeah.
Just make them a place.
Could have even made it look like David's Star, too. Would have been nice.
That would be interesting.
What was your first introduction to Islam? What did you hear about Islam growing up, and when did you start really looking into it?
Well, one of my earliest memories is actually being told specifically about the Israel and Palestine border, about how that Muslims are commanded even to kill Jews where they stand. That was one of the first things that I remember. And obviously, even then as a kid with really no knowledge, I kind of pushed it off. I was like, there's no way. They were really pushing it at me. I was like, no, it's in their book. And I said, it kind of can't, that doesn't make any sense to me. So my ideas of it as a kid were always, I guess, underlyingly vague and mostly negative because of how the Western media machine paints Islam and paints Muslim people.
So were you hearing that we're terrorists,
Yeah, unfortunately, it's quite typical.
The classic.
Yeah, hearing about terrorism, hearing about women's rights mostly. We all I don't think there's a person who doesn't know about the things said about that.
Yeah. And when did you start looking into Islam, or when did it become something that really was in front of you?
That was quite a recent development and quite a long story. So the reason I started looking into Islam and religion again in general, quite paradoxically, I guess, was because of a girl I was talking to right after high school. I had just gotten out of this terrible breakup, but we had started talking just through Instagram. We would just like an Instagram story or something and just react to it. And we started talking a little more till eventually we were hanging out in person every once in a while. And from there, it kind of just we're generally dating.
And this girl's a Muslim girl.
Yeah, she is a Muslim girl. And we would talk about religion, about that, because obviously, American dating, Western dating is not what you do, Through her life, she got rather disconnected from Islam, and she always felt really, really guilty about that, about being away from it, about, not praying as much or not making dua as much as she should, and really just having it be not a thing that was forefront in her life. It was something that, we would talk about occasionally, where it was occasionally I would ask her questions and we would discuss religious ideas, because I, despite being disconnected from religion, I had a lot of backlog of research. I knew a lot about Judaism and Christianity, and I've read through the Bible and I've read through the Torah, and I know things about, two the Abrahamic religions, but not this third one, which I had only, since speaking to her, I realized, my goodness, I know really nothing about this world. I know nothing about this massive group of people that I've now come to love so much.
Did she tell you why she moved away from the Muslim world or religion?
She always felt guilty, mostly about prayer. She had a lot of experiences growing up that made it so that way she didn't pray as much as she could, or just commonly miss it. And she felt guilt from there. And then it just built up every little one, every prayer missed, and it would become this really big just mountain of remembering mistakes and remembering things that, you know, she could have done better. And I think a lot of people, myself a little bit, even now, can relate a little bit to that feeling of, you know, missing something or doing something a little poorly, and then you feel like you might as well not even try a little bit. That's not exactly what she was feeling, but it was something along those lines. And so when it came to, you know, talking to me, and she had a previous boyfriend, it was something that, you know, her parents were obviously quite upset about, and she felt guilty about that as well.
Did she tell you why she was okay with?
It might have been a case of just away from it, so just doing what, you know, other people around do, you know,
regular American.
Yeah, just regular American. Just going to high school, you talk to people. That's just how things go. And I guess she just, you know, didn't feel it was that different.
So what questions did you start asking her about Islam?
At first, it was kind of just like broad strokes. You know, the things that everyone has those kinds of questions about, you know, women's rights, or, hey, what about this whole terrorism deal? You know, like where everyone and their mom is talking about, like, you random Muslim 12-year-old somehow being nefarious, having some kind of, like, their parents are telling them something when, of course, they're not. And she would tell me about that. She would tell me about just how women are really treated in the folds of Islam, and how women we're taught to treat women, and how misconceptions about different words through English translations of the Quran, like you know, jihad is a big one. The word jihad immediately being a red flag to people as this, you know, like just violent holy war type deal, I suppose. Even though, really, as we know, that word has a lot of other meanings that are quite, you know, the opposite. Just to struggle to endeavor to be better at something, quitting an addiction, trying to do better with your parents. You know, it can be a billion things. Or so a lot of just there's a lot of stuff kind of like that, about broad strokes of what is this religion, what is the beliefs, who is.
So she felt like Islam and Muslims treated women right.
Yes, yeah.
When you started asking her questions about Islam, what made you continue asking questions? I mean, was it?
Yeah. So
because you didn't feel a pressure to. Sorry, not to cut you. You didn't feel a pressure to convert, did you? Was she telling you that you have to convert?
Oh no, not at all.
Okay.
Absolutely not. It felt like it just made sense. It felt like there was reason, there was science backup, there was historical with you know, hadith, intense like verification. Islam just felt like it answered a lot of questions that I had about why Judaism or Christianity didn't fill that need. It felt hollow, like there's missing pieces here. This doesn't feel quite right. Shortly after me getting home, her family would actually move away to Oman. Before they left, her mother, I should say her name, Tanya, by the way, Tanya's mother would gift me a clear Quran. And the Quran kind of just sat on my desk for like maybe a week, until I had heard that Ramadan was coming up this year. It was this past Ramadan, so pretty recently. And I learned the importance of fasting and why that's such a spiritually powerful thing to do. So I opened the Quran. It was sitting there, but then suddenly in my off time, I was reading it. I read through about 75% of it by the time that Ramadan came up. And while reading through it, it was really just eye-opening, honestly. It was. It was answers to questions about just life and existing and your relationship with God. And it was so much more information that could be understood by me than I really had ever expected. If you read Bible, or if you read the Torah, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stories or metaphors. It's kind of like in a lot up to interpretation. But with the Quran, it was it was concise. You can understand it, and as it said, Islam is supposed to be easy, so easy to understand, easy to implement into your life. And I made the decision a couple days into Ramadan that I would take my Shahada. I did on the third day, I think.
So how did you convert?
Actually, I asked Tanya what the Shahada was. I was like, how do you become Muslim? Is it something you have to be born into? Is it something? And she told me what it was, and I asked her. I was like, can you give me the Shahada? Can I repeat it back to you? And she said, like, are you sure? Like, I'm not pressuring you. And I said, no, I want this in my life. I've already been fasting with her and with her family and everyone else for a couple of days. Just to see if I could do it, I suppose. And I asked her to give me the Shahada, and I took it right there.
Okay, so you took it with her.
Yes.
You didn't go to a masjid and do it.
Later on, I did.
Later on, I did. Okay,
with Imam Safi from Qalam. You know him.
From Qalam.
Yes.
Very nice, also.
I asked him.
How'd you feel when you converted?
Right at the moment, it was just this rush of like, I felt great. I felt like now I have something that I can follow. That hole is filled a little bit. And that was a little shallow, I guess. In that moment, I realized like maybe my reasons are wrong. Maybe my sincerity isn't as much as I'd want it to be. These doubts in my mind, and I kind of became a little nervous about it, because I realized, like, what if I can't live up to this and the expectations of the people that I'm going to get to know? And the very next day, this was on a Thursday. The very next day, on that Friday, was the first of the Ramadan Nights program. That's where I met you, actually, if you remember.
Yeah.
And I get there, and it's just completely, like, there's like 2,000 cars, probably got to be. I had no idea it would be that busy. I got there right on time, which is a mistake. You're supposed to be like an hour early, or you're not getting inside. And it's like the air is different. Something's different. Seeing all these people congregated for the purpose of religion, and the thing that really stood out to me is that it didn't feel like stifling. It wasn't weird. These are just like, people are smiling and laughing, and it's a good atmosphere. That really stood out to me. As shallow as that is, I suppose that's something that I hadn't felt before.
No, because what you said earlier about church feeling very institutionalized.
Yeah.
People felt like they were forced to be there.
Yeah.
Because it's like Sunday, I gotta go.
Yeah, like, I gotta go in the morning, I gotta get all dressed up. And I did. I put on a collared shirt a little bit. I felt a little, I guess, a little out of place still, a tiny bit, because I didn't know at that time how many reverts there were at Qalam. I didn't know. So I thought I was going to be like the only person. And I met a sister who was like, hey, you look kind of lost. And I said, yeah, I'm a little lost. I'm very lost, actually. There's no more seats. I was ready to kind of turn around and leave. And she took me inside, and before we got inside, we ran into you. And she said she was a revert, and then we ran into you, and you were as well. And immediately I'm like,
wait, I'm not a revert.
No, you're not?
No.
I swear I thought you...
You thought I was a revert? Cool.
No, you didn't?
All right, I give off that energy. All right.
My bad. I really...
He's laughing over there.
If you want to cut that, you can. I'm sorry.
No. That's why.
Yeah.
Okay. So you bumped into me. Yeah. Was that cool guy? Tell the audience if I was.
Yeah. I mean, I really swear you were, brother. I'm so sorry.
No, that's not an insult. It's a good thing. Well, I'm glad I give off a cosmopolitan vibe, well, like I've been through stuff.
Not as such. I guess I thought I heard her say that. I'm so sorry.
No.
But anyways, so we ran into a sister, Alyssa, who took me inside, and on the way inside we met you, and you were just very smiley, very just happy to be there, very happy to help. You saw that I was, lost, and she was like guiding me through the building complex, and you were immediately like, hey, let's take you inside. I haven't seen you around before. And like, let's try to get you away inside, which was like, oh my goodness. I feel like that's a coincidence. The first person I speak to is a revert. Interesting with Alyssa. And then the next person I talk to is just being really nice and taking me inside. Okay, well that's something, I guess. And we're walking through the building, and you're like, as we're just walking through, you're like, hey, this is Ben, and we're just shaking hands and stuff, and people are being nice and like, hey, haven't seen you around before. How's it going? And I'm like, it's going good. And I'm carrying my little journal with pencils because I just want to, I want to take notes, I guess. And it's just person after person of smile and a handshake. And I feel it puts me really at ease. And then we get to the staff door, and you open it, and it's Sheikh Mikaeel Smith talking. Sheikh Mikaeel Smith is a revert, and there's one seat left, just one seat in like the little small area, and I feel like, okay, well that seems like something, all right, and I sit down just in time for Sheikh Mikaeel to start talking, and it is probably still to this day the most like moving and influential lecture I've ever listened to. He spoke on just everything I needed to hear, working on doubts with Islam, working on how it's supposed to feel. He talked about being a revert himself. He talked about how that process goes. He talked about it was perfect. Tears in my eyes. I promise you, it was the most amazing thing ever. And I remembered all of those doubts I felt, all of those like, maybe I can't, maybe this isn't for me, just gone completely. And the best thing that he talked about, the absolute best thing, is he spoke on this hadith, and I don't remember where it's from, but he said that it's narrated that our Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that belief is supposed to feel like breeze through a field. Like it's not always like it's not always glaring down at you. Every little thing you do, you can't always have it on your mind. Of course, you have to do things, but every once in a while, a little breeze comes through, and then another one, just little bits, and it chills all the way up and down my body. And he said that in those moments of the little breezes, you can either just, okay, wind, or you can look back and think about it, and you can feel it, and you can feel the breeze, and you can look back and say, I see you reminding me of you to God. And that immediately I felt there was a breeze. It was amazing. And all of the doubts were just shattered. All throughout Ramadan, I was at Qalam all the time. I tried my hardest with work and obviously with a new thing to not miss as many prayers as I could. And all throughout the time, Tanya's mother was very excited to hear that I reverted, and I was talking to her a lot, and I was talking to Tanya a lot just about asking questions and how things work. And all I wanted to know was more about Islam. That's the only knowledge that mattered about hadiths and various interpretations of different things in the Quran and this and this and this and this and all kinds of little tiny stuff, learning the Sunnah, all the way from, just little tiny things like how you would walk upstairs, to big stuff like eating and drinking with your right hand only. That I still mess that one up every once in a while. That's the thing I feel like, a lot of people do, but all I wanted to know was more about Islam. And on the note of my conversion, I myself, started thinking about how dating is supposed to work while I'm speaking with this girl. And
well, before we get into that,
yeah, of course.
my brother, I did not know that I was a part of this story. That's
No,
awesome to hear. Incredible.
Yeah.
And subhanAllah, when you're saying that, you ran into two of the few people that could sneak you in, because people don't know it was full.
Yeah,
we were at capacity, and we snuck you in.
Yeah. No, you're a massive part of it.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know that. Alhamdulillah. I'm listening to this live.
It's crazy. It was like like the only two perfect people, like you said, that could have gotten me into.
Yeah, because there were kids behind us. They're like, "Can you sneak us in too?" I was like, "No, I'm only getting in Ben."
Yeah, no, it was really, really, really something that, just the perfect stars align moment. I felt like I had to be in there. I felt guided to be inside listening to that lecture. It was, far from a coincidence.
SubhanAllah. Shout out to Alyssa for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you're talking about how did her parents and your parents feel about the conversion, and how did her parents feel about her talking to a white Jewish Christian guy?
On the front of her parents, it's a lot more of a short story. They were obviously quite unhappy about it, because it's it's far from Islamically correct. You're not supposed to be, I guess, just traditionally like dating in the West. That's not a thing. It's not a thing you should do. They were just upset at her about it, which made her upset and feel guilty about that. And I guess at first kind of took the stance of like parents being strict, before I really started learning and before I really understood things about Islam. I was always like, no, you don't gotta listen to them. It's okay. Don't do what you want. Until I started learning more, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe listen to them. Okay, maybe let's listen to them. Hold on. Hold on. It was definitely something that I took I took heavily into account after I did convert. Then my parents were rather, to say the least, confused about my decision to even be interested in Islam at all. Even at the start of just talking to a Muslim girl and interacting with a Muslim family, they were very weird about it, I guess. I will say that, a lot of people were a lot worse than a couple people. Like, for example, my sister, totally fine. She is so supportive. She's great. I love her very much. She's extremely supportive of my decision and my looking into religion. And I told you before we started filming that she's actually interested in the Quran herself, and she's going to be reading through it on her own time after my, listening to my story and listening to me talk about it and go to masjids, and she's interested in it herself now.
That's incredible. May Allah guide her. I mean,
inshallah. And it's mainly the older folks in my family.
I mean, you converted to Islam during what's happening in Palestine.
Well after
too, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, we're still in it, but like.
Yeah. Well after October, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
And tensions being how they were, the sentiment of people who are pro-Palestine from older generations is that like you're brainwashed. You're brainwashed by social media. You're seeing people who don't know what they're talking about tell you news, and on to that I say, well, all news is a little one way or the other. That argument doesn't make sense, but what makes me brainwashed? Why? So that was spit to me a lot. It's like you're against us. You're against the Jewish people. You're Jewish, but you're maybe not. Like, are you? Do you hate us? Do you want to kill us? And I said, no, of course not. Does she want to kill us? Does she harbor something against us? Do her parents hate you? And all these things are no. Of course not. Of course they don't. It was just a lot of questions about their intentions and my knowledge of what I was, as they put it, getting myself into. And from their perspective, they were trying to be helpful. At the time, top of their mind, it was a lot of pro-Zionist stuff. It was a lot of like, well, what about what this is going on with Palestine, and what about Hamas, and what about this and this, and things that really weren't insanely relevant to,
You can name
me.
some of the stuff, yeah.
Well, no, I mean, just like talking about Hamas as an argument as to why I shouldn't be speaking to a Muslim person doesn't make sense to me. You know what I mean? So a lot of it was, with one in particular, we had a lot of talks about it where she would kind of go all, as far back as she could into Israel's history and point out, like, we've tried to we've tried to help Palestine, like, we've been tolerant of you guys, but, like, they don't want us. They just want to, they want us gone. They don't want us in America. They want everyone to be Muslim. They don't want us around. And really, that stems from, like, a fear of anti-Semitism, like, spreading everywhere. Because to them, it's me converting and me talking to and interacting with Muslim people was me at the same time becoming anti-Semitic. Because apparently in their belief, the Quran specifically talks about, wanting to eliminate Jews from lands and stuff, and everywhere a Muslim person goes becomes Muslim land, and they want to, spread everywhere across the world or whatever. And me, joining the ranks, I guess they really didn't like that.
You've read the Quran. Is that true that the Quran talks about killing Jews?
No, of course not. It's untrue. But every time I would say stuff like this, it would be, well, you're brainwashed. You have no idea what you're talking about. You don't know. You don't know this. You don't know this. And I would just back it up. I would have to just back myself up. After a while of, like, just trying to press on them, trying to be like, no, but it's fine. I try to change their minds, but I really couldn't. So I guess now I'm sort of just resigned to, their minds can't be changed. It's decades of, I guess, propaganda. They can't really see another side. So I am resigning myself to kind of just, they're okay with my decision particularly. They are perfectly okay with, me being around Muslim people and Tanya and their family. And, like, just today, our parents actually, we're interacting with each other. They're okay. But there's just that underlying awkwardness even now about, like, where are you going? And I'm, wearing a thobe or something. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to Kulam. I'm going here. And it'd just be like okay, fine, whatever. They don't ask. I don't really talk to them about it as much as that's like I don't know. I wish I could change their minds. I wish I could have them, know what we know and see what we see. Even it's so obvious to us. Of course, it's right there. It's in writing. It's in the minds of millions of people, and somehow they just can't. They won't be convinced. I still love them. I always will. I'm not going to separate myself from them. I don't have a lot of family around. They're kind of the people I got, so I'm in a state of avoiding, I guess, conflict with them rather than trying to push on them, trying to convince them,
Yeah, and Islam doesn't ask you to. The verses where Allah even speaks about being friends and being cordial and being in good relations with your parents was dropped about one of the Sahaba, one of the companions, being tortured by his parents. And Allah still told him, the people that are torturing you, still be good to them.
Be dutiful to your parents, yes.
Yeah, so we don't ask for that in Islam in the first place.
Yeah, so with that in mind, recently, I've just tried to avoid as much conflict as I can with them. I'm garnering a lot of more support, and I think it's just a matter of time, Yeah. Eventually they'll come around, I think.
So back to her side of the family, and did she, subhanAllah, did you find that she started becoming more interested in Islam, more religious as you progressed in your journey?
Yes. A big part of this was me seeing her feel, so torn up about, being disconnected from Islam was an opportunity for me to help her as well. I can, if I'm doing things, I can in a way be like, peer pressure is the wrong word, but, sort of just like, hey, I'm doing this, I'm learning things, I'm reading Quran, I'm trying my best to memorize surahs, which is big weakness for me. But you can do this as well. You had it. You can get it back. And alhamdulillah, she's been doing a lot better recently. She's been doing really great, I think. And that was something that, again, Imam Safi spoke to me about. Himself, his wife converted to Islam. I guess he had a similar experience, not with dating, but with the idea of helping someone get along with Islam and helping someone come to it. So she's been doing a lot. She's been doing a lot better.
And her parents, how do they feel now about you guys' relationship? I know you told me, inshallah, there should be a. Can I say it?
You can say it. Yeah, we're making it fully halal, everything as it says.
Fully zabiha.
Yeah, and they love me. We talk on like video and like calls every once in a while, and her mother will be in the background telling me some kind of something. It's going very well on that front. Inshallah, sometime this year there's going to be nikah. I think so.
Inshallah.
So that's great. My family is happy with her. Her family's happy with me. So we're doing good stuff is happening there.
What do you say to the people that would say that you converted just for her or because love is blind and you wanted to marry her, so you converted to Islam?
That's something that I was kind of. I suppose in a way I was a little. I'm trying hard to word my speech in a way to make it not seem like that, because it really wasn't at all. She never at any point like pressured me into it, and I at any point was never like I gotta do this if we gotta talk, like if I want to be with this person, because I've gotten that question. Obviously, it's almost a bit of a common thing to be asked, and it's a common thing to really happen. But I guess to that question, even if things don't work out, and that even if from right now we somehow never speak, never interact ever again, I would still choose Islam, because it just I don't see a way I can live really without the knowledge that I've gained, without the guidance that I've gained from it. I think that it's such a beautiful thing. It's such a good structure to day by day, to life, to philosophy, even to how to think about science and how to think about your relationship to the world, to the relationship with Allah. It's way deeper than just trying to be with a person.
Right. I want to talk to you about this, because this is why I think one of the reasons your story is so beneficial for people to hear. This is such a common phenomenon in the Muslim Western world, where Muslims that are not very practicing or feel that they've done many bad things or bad misdeeds, and that guilt and shame makes them feel like they no longer have a place in the Muslim community. Therefore, they no longer can find a spouse within the Muslim community, and so they go down the path of least resistance, right? They go down the path of a culture and people that are not going to judge them for their lifestyle and maybe even ideologies at that point. And so they end up with this is a phenomenon, especially with Muslim men. Many will go and marry non-Muslim women and American women and stuff like that. And it happens the other way around too. Muslim women going to find, American men. Now that you're on the Muslim side of things, what do you think we messed up on and we're lacking to where, alhamdulillah, she got lucky, because you're an amazing guy, mashallah. I know you on a personal level, and she got lucky, man. Like it doesn't usually happen that way. Right? It doesn't happen where they convert to Islam and they're genuinely convinced and they have genuinely good akhlaq, good character, which you do. It usually ends up a mess. And for the rest of the Muslim world within the West, what do you think? Where do you think we're lacking and that leads to stuff like this?
I think that as bad as loose guidelines go, there's a lot of, I think, over strictness. That's not the right word for it, But
You can be brutally honest, man.
I think that, well, I mean, I just don't know the actual word. I feel like there's people who are way too strict with younger Muslim people nowadays. This is a thing that I've heard from a lot of people. It's, you know, the uncles in the masjid who like get upset at you if you don't know, if they don't know how to like use a phone or something. You know, you can like be like, oh, whatever, you're just older, whatever. But that generation of people built the Muslim community here. We can't brush them off as, like antiquated. We shouldn't be doing that because they sacrificed and gave so much to have DFW in the middle of Texas in America, the super ultimate like state of Christianity. It's Texas. Like, come on, as a Muslim hub in this part of the whole world. That's such a massive thing. But at the same time, I don't think we should really have as much like strictness, like this older generation did things like this. You guys have to be like perfectly on it. I think we can be, not to like put it away, like, no, you don't have to do this. You don't have to like just shove it off. But I feel like we can be more forgiving with our peers and with ourselves, especially parents to kids, especially older generations to younger generations. I feel like the way that it's gone about, I guess, in correcting mistakes and disciplining can be a little harsh. And on that specific note, there's actually a study going on from Muslim Faith Trends that's focusing on this exact question. It's a survey that was shown to us by Dr. Sam Ross of TCU, the professor of...
I love Dr. Sam Ross.
Sam's great. I love Dr. Ross. He's awesome.
Also Jewish and converted to Islam.
Yeah, I've spoken to him myself a couple of times. Him and a team of researchers are running this survey that basically Muslim people aged, I think it was 16 to 23, just that a very specific age group of people. Like, what do you experience? Specifically that question, what do you experience? How are you taught things? What do you really believe? Why would you not? Why do you believe these things? Like, how religious are specifically in my age group, I'm 18. How religious is the young Muslim generation right now? What can we do to improve it? How can we fix exactly that problem? And it's ongoing right now. There's a link to it.
Right, because we as the Muslim community in America and Europe have made the halal very difficult, which is marriage. We've made it where we've pushed the age of marriage up along with the Western society, 25, 30. We made it where, there's this whole a huge sum of money that has to be put down for you to, even as if you're buying a car or something. So we made the halal difficult. We made marriage difficult. And because of that, the path of least resistance, you're looking around and you're going, well, there's hundreds of girls in my class right now, or guys, and this is just a lot easier, and they won't judge me, right? So I'm just wondering, like, how we can fix that. I think one of the best ways is to make sure that us as our generation make it easy for our kids to get married. As soon as they're 18, 19, 20, if they find someone that they're interested in, just let them get married. I mean, Islam's not anti-divorce. I'm not pro-divorce either. But,
yeah, I 100% agree with that, actually. That's definitely something that, marriage is made very difficult. Things like, halal things are made very difficult. I definitely agree. And
a lot of Shiites say that Allah actually blesses you as soon as you get married. If you're worried about money, the moment you get married and the moment you have kids, those two moments, Allah almost guarantees an opening of blessing monetarily, financially after those two decisions.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you have any final comments or thoughts before we head off?
I feel the main thing, I don't know if I like touched on this enough. I feel like everyone just really needs to focus on the difference in current times with war around Palestine, genocide in Palestine, about the difference between anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. The Muslim community right now, we actually had a conversation about this, is doing a pretty good job of separating the two, but the big argument of Zionists right now is that we are saying the same things back to them. We have, we use misinformation, or we are dehumanizing that side. I feel like you gotta keep the moral high ground, because we have it. Nothing about what the most moral army in the world is doing is morally correct. Nothing. It is a genocide by definition, factually. That's just it. But the moment that you're having an argument with someone, or you're having like a debate about whether it's a good thing or not, and you don't like research a point, or you say something that is like on the level of dehumanizing that you'll hear from Netanyahu and his cronies all in the house. It doesn't, obviously it's not like makes it just as bad as them, but it removes a lot of your like accountability, credibility. There you go. That wasn't the right word. It's definitely something that I feel like we really need to keep in mind. We're not supposed to act in anger. That's something we're taught directly. The Prophet said that specifically, never act in anger. You have to really, really keep a level head.
Habibi, Benjamin Palat, thank you so much for joining the podcast, bro. I hope you enjoyed.
I did very much. This is the first time doing something like this. I hope I gave you an interesting episode.
No, it was great. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Raheem. Appreciate you, dog. And thank you guys for listening to the Ansari podcast.